For more than half a century, humanity has relied on a simple concept to protect its most valuable digital assets, the password. It is a sequence of characters, numbers, and symbols that we create, memorize, reset, forget, and recreate countless times throughout our lives. Passwords guard our financial accounts, personal communications, medical information, business systems, and online identities. For decades, this approach worked remarkably well. But the Internet evolved far more rapidly than the security model behind it. What began as a small network connecting trusted systems has transformed into a global digital ecosystem containing billions of users, devices, websites, and automated services. Today, attackers no longer operate as isolated individuals guessing passwords by hand. Modern cybercrime is highly automated, industrialized, and global. Massive bot networks constantly search for stolen credentials, vulnerable systems, and exposed data. In this environment, the greatest weakness of the password is no longer mathematics. It is the human burden of creating, remembering, and protecting secrets across hundreds of accounts. The password is not dead, but its limitations have become increasingly difficult to ignore. As digital threats continue to evolve, the technology industry is pursuing a fundamental shift toward stronger forms of authentication, which are designed for the realities of the modern Internet. Every single day, a massive corporate database somewhere on Earth is quietly breached. Hackers don't always target you individually, they target the massive entities that store your credentials. When a major retailer, a social media giant, or a financial institution suffers a data leak, millions of password combinations are stripped away in seconds. These aren't just strings of text to the attackers, they are high-value commodities. They are compiled into massive, multi-gigabyte text files containing billions of real-world credentials, which are then distributed across underground networks. Because human beings are fundamentally predictable creatures who reuse variations of the same phrase across multiple websites, a single corporate leak creates a devastating domino effect. The moment one obscure account you made a decade ago is compromised, your entire digital footprint is placed in immediate jeopardy. The modern hacker rarely sits at a terminal manually guessing your pet's name or your birth year. The threat landscape has completely shifted to hyper-optimized automation. Malicious actors deploy sophisticated credential stuffing tools that process tens of thousands of stolen password combinations per second against thousands of websites simultaneously. These scripts run silently in the background, utilizing vast networks of compromised devices to obscure their geographic location. They exploit the mathematical predictability of human behavior. They know you replaced an E with a 3, or added an exclamation point at the very end of your favorite word. To a computer processing billions of permutations per second, these common human substitutions add zero meaningful complexity. The security mechanisms we thought were clever are completely transparent to modern automated attacks. Beyond credential stuffing, modern attackers increasingly rely on raw computational power to crack stolen password databases. Using specialized hardware built around high-performance graphics processing units, or GPUs, adversaries can perform enormous numbers of password guesses in a very short period of time. The effectiveness of these attacks depends heavily on the security measures protecting the passwords. Weak passwords stored with outdated hashing methods may be cracked rapidly. Strong passwords protected by modern password hashing algorithms can remain resistant for much longer. This creates a difficult balancing act. Security experts recommend long, unique, randomly generated passwords for every account. Yet the average person may have hundreds of digital accounts spread across dozens of devices and services. The challenge is no longer simply creating a strong password. It is creating strong passwords everywhere while managing them consistently and securely. As computing power continues to advance, the industry has increasingly recognized that relying exclusively on memorized secrets places too much responsibility on human beings and creates opportunities for attackers to exploit predictable behavior. Even if you construct a perfectly random, 30-character password and store it securely, you remain vulnerable to the most dangerous vector of all, social engineering. Phishing attacks have evolved far beyond the obvious, poorly written emails of the early internet. Today, adversaries construct flawless, pixel-perfect replicas of banking portal login pages, shipping notification forms, and corporate employee hubs. They manipulate human psychology, utilizing manufactured urgency, fear, or professional pressure to coerce you into voluntarily typing your credentials into a malicious form. The strongest cryptographic barrier in the world means absolutely nothing if a human being can be manipulated into hand-delivering the key to the front door. As the limitations of passwords become more apparent, the technology industry has increasingly embraced a different approach to authentication. Instead of relying entirely on something you know, such as a password, modern systems increasingly verify something you are, something you possess, or a combination of both. This shift has fueled the widespread adoption of biometric technologies. Fingerprints, facial recognition systems, and iris scanning technologies allow devices to verify identity using unique physical characteristics. These technologies make authentication faster, more convenient, and often more secure than typing complex passwords repeatedly throughout the day. Yet biometrics are not replacing cryptography. In most modern implementations, biometrics serve as a convenient way to unlock and authorize cryptographic credentials stored securely on a device. The real security comes from combining a trusted device, strong cryptography, and local identity verification. Rather than eliminating the human element entirely, biometrics reduce friction while helping users interact with stronger security systems more naturally. Consider the engineering built into modern capacitive and ultrasonic fingerprint sensors. They do not merely take a flat two-dimensional photograph of your skin. Instead, they map the physical topography of your fingertip using electrical currents or high-frequency sound waves. They measure the tiny variations in distance between the ridges and valleys of your epidermis, creating a highly detailed, three-dimensional depth map. This physical data is instantly converted into an encrypted mathematical representation that is utterly unique to you. It is a system built to verify your physical presence in real space, ensuring that a digital asset cannot be unlocked by anyone who isn't standing right next to the machine. Facial recognition technology takes biometric authentication into an increasingly sophisticated dimension. Advanced systems analyze the unique structure of a person's face by measuring relationships between facial landmarks and contours. Some modern devices project thousands of invisible infrared points onto the face, while dedicated sensors measure depth, shape, and spatial relationships. The resulting information is converted into a mathematical representation, commonly called a biometric template, which can later be used to help verify identity. Because these systems incorporate depth sensing, infrared imaging, and liveness detection techniques, they are generally much more resistant to ordinary photographs or simple video replays than traditional camera-based recognition systems. However, no biometric technology is perfectly immune to spoofing. Security researchers continuously evaluate facial recognition systems against new attack techniques, and manufacturers regularly update their defenses as threats evolve. Rather than transforming your face into an uncopyable cryptographic token, the device uses facial verification to unlock cryptographic credentials stored securely within trusted hardware. The security comes from the combination of biometric verification and strong cryptographic protections, not from the face itself becoming a cryptographic key. One of the most common concerns surrounding biometrics is a simple question: where does this sensitive information actually go? On many modern smartphones, tablets, personal computers, and biometric authentication relies on dedicated secure hardware specifically designed to isolate sensitive data from the rest of the system. Different manufacturers use different names for these components, including secure enclave, trusted execution environment, and hardware security modules. When you enroll a fingerprint or face scan, the device typically creates a protected mathematical template rather than storing a raw image. During authentication, newly captured biometric information is compared against the protected template locally on the device. In many consumer implementations, this process occurs entirely within secure hardware, meaning your raw fingerprint image or facial scan does not need to be transmitted to a remote server for verification. This architecture significantly reduces exposure to network-based attacks and limits the amount of sensitive information that leaves the device. While no security system can be considered completely impenetrable, hardware-backed biometric authentication represents a substantial improvement over traditional centralized credential storage models. History teaches us that whenever a stronger lock is invented, the criminal underworld simply builds a more sophisticated crowbar. The transition to biometrics has not stopped hackers, it has merely forced them to evolve their methodologies. If an attacker cannot guess a password, they begin to look for ways to manipulate the biometric data pathway itself. The battleground has shifted from cracking text to intercepting data streams, fabricating biological material, and exploiting the systemic vulnerabilities of the software that interprets our biology. We are entering a highly complex arms race where the human body itself is the target of digital exploitation. One of the earliest vectors of attack against biometric systems is physical spoofing. In high-level targeted attacks, adversaries have successfully duplicated human fingerprints using advanced high-resolution photography, specialized 3D printing, and synthetic conductive silicon compounds. If an attacker can obtain a clear image of your fingerprint from a glass surface you touched, they can reconstruct a physical replica capable of tricking basic capacitive sensors. Similarly, rudimentary facial recognition systems have been bypassed using sophisticated, three-dimensional facial molds or realistic prosthetic masks. While these attacks require significant physical proximity and technical resources, they prove that our biological signatures are not entirely infallible. The meteoric rise of generative artificial intelligence has introduced an entirely new nightmare scenario into the biometric landscape, the weaponization of real-time deepfakes. As video and voice synthesis tools become hyper-realistic, attackers can generate synthetic, moving, three-dimensional digital representations of a target's face using just a few seconds of public footage harvested from social media. If a biometric system relies on a standard camera stream without advanced depth sensing hardware, such as during a remote online bank account verification or a video call verification, a perfectly executed AI deepfake can bypass the security perimeter completely. The boundary between authentic human presence and synthetic digital fabrication is blurring at a terrifying pace. One of the most significant challenges in biometric security is recoverability. When a password is compromised, the solution is straightforward. You replace it with a new one. But biometric characteristics such as fingerprints, facial structure, and iris patterns cannot be changed nearly as easily. For this reason, modern biometric systems rarely store raw biometric images. Instead, they rely on protected mathematical representations combined with cryptographic safeguards designed to make reconstruction extremely difficult. Even so, security professionals view biometric compromise differently from password compromise. Because physical characteristics are persistent, any compromise involving biometric data can have longer-term implications than the theft of a password. The solution adopted across much of the industry is not to rely solely on biometrics. Instead, Biometrics are increasingly paired with hardware-backed cryptographic credentials, ensuring that identity verification is only one layer of a broader security architecture. Recognizing the limitations of passwords and the challenges associated with biometrics alone, some of the world's largest technology companies began collaborating on a new vision for digital authentication. This effort helped accelerate the adoption of standards developed through the FIDO Alliance, an industry consortium that includes major technology providers, device manufacturers, and security companies. The core idea is straightforward. Instead of authenticating users with reusable secrets, devices use public key cryptography. When a passkey is created, the device generates a unique cryptographic key pair. A public key is shared with the service provider, while the private key remains protected on the user's device. During future logins, the private key proves ownership without ever being transmitted across the Internet. By eliminating the need to transmit reusable passwords, passkeys dramatically reduce many of the attack methods that have dominated cybersecurity for decades. Let us look at the underlying mechanics of how a passkey works during a standard login sequence. When you attempt to access a secure website, the site sends a unique digital challenge to your device. Your device does not send back a password or your biometric data. Instead, it uses your local private key to sign the challenge mathematically, proving ownership, and sends the signature back. This process can only occur if you unlock your private key locally using your face, your fingerprint, or a device PIN. Because the website never stores your private key, there is absolutely no central database for a hacker to breach. If the website's servers are completely compromised, the attackers walk away with nothing but useless public keys that cannot be used to log into anything else. One of the most powerful benefits of passkeys is their resistance to phishing attacks. Traditional phishing succeeds because users can be tricked into typing passwords into fraudulent websites. Passkeys operate differently. They are associated with specific websites and domains, allowing devices to recognize when a site is legitimate and when it is merely pretending to be. If a user accidentally visits a convincing fake website, the device will generally refuse to use the passkey because the identity of the site does not match the service for which the credential was originally created. This dramatically reduces the effectiveness of traditional credential theft attacks. However, cybersecurity rarely stands still. Attackers continue to pursue alternative techniques, including malware, social engineering, session hijacking, and account recovery fraud. Passkeys do not eliminate cybercrime, but they significantly weaken one of the most successful attack methods in Internet history. The push toward a passwordless world is not merely an idealistic venture driven by consumer convenience, it is being aggressively pushed forward by massive economic realities. For corporations, managing passwords is an astronomical financial liability. Millions of dollars are spent annually by IT departments solely on resolving employee password resets and managing complex help desk infrastructures. Furthermore, the corporate legal and financial fallout from a single data breach resulting from compromised credentials can devastate an organization's bottom line and destroy market trust overnight. By removing passwords from their infrastructure entirely, businesses drastically reduce their threat surface area, eliminate entire categories of cyber liability, and streamline operational efficiency at an unprecedented scale. As technology integrates deeply into the physical infrastructure of our civilizations, the stakes of authentication security have risen from financial loss to absolute physical peril. Modern industrial control systems, water treatment facilities, electrical grids, and healthcare networks are entirely reliant on digital access portals. A compromised password on a critical infrastructure network can allow an adversary to disrupt basic services, stall transit systems, or compromise medical machinery, threatening human life in real space. The death of the password is a matter of national and global security. We must transition to cryptographically unphishable standards before legacy credentials allow catastrophic vulnerabilities to manifest in our physical world. Beyond security and economics, the transition to biometrics represents a monumental leap forward for digital accessibility and inclusivity. For individuals living with motor control challenges, cognitive impairments, severe dyslexia, or age-related visual decay, navigating the complex world of modern passwords can be an exclusionary, deeply frustrating barrier to basic digital participation. Remembering complex strings, typing quickly before a session times out, and managing multi-factor authenticator apps can cut vulnerable populations off from essential services. Biometrics normalize and democratize access, transforming a complex cognitive task into a simple, universal human action that requires no technical literacy to operate safely. There is a profound psychological benefit to the death of the password that is rarely discussed. The modern human brain is currently overloaded with an unnatural amount of microstressors. We are forced to manage hundreds of disparate digital identities, each requiring unique, rotating keys that we must constantly remember under penalty of digital banishment. This creates a persistent background hum of cognitive fatigue and anxiety. By shifting the entire burden of authentication to invisible, local cryptography and effortless biometric verification, we reclaim a significant portion of our mental bandwidth. Technology returns to its rightful role, a tool that adapts to the natural state of a human being, rather than forcing a human being to adapt to the rigid, artificial demands of a machine. As we look far into the future of this security evolution, the concept of authentication is shifting even beyond a single scan of your face or finger. The next frontier is behavioral biometrics. This technology monitors your identity continuously based on how you naturally interact with your device. It analyzes the unique angle at which you hold your smartphone, the specific rhythm and pressure of your typing cadence, the trajectory of your mouse cursor across the screen, and even your unique walking gait while the phone is in your pocket. If a thief grabs your unlocked phone out of your hand and runs down the street, the system immediately recognizes that the physical behavioral patterns do not match your established profile and locks down the device instantly. Security becomes a continuous, living state of active protection. Ultimately, the decline of password-centric security is part of a much larger transformation in digital identity. For years, online identity depended heavily on shared secrets stored across countless databases. Every account required another password, another credential, and another potential point of failure. The next generation of authentication is built differently. Local hardware security, biometric verification, cryptographic credentials, secure recovery systems, and phishing-resistant standards work together as a unified framework. The goal is not perfect security. No technology can guarantee that. The goal is to dramatically reduce the most common and costly forms of digital compromise while making security easier for ordinary people to use correctly. Passwords are unlikely to disappear overnight. But the industry is steadily moving toward authentication systems that place less trust in human memory and more trust in proving cryptographic principles. The era of relying exclusively on passwords is gradually coming to a close, and a more resilient model of digital identity is taking shape in its place. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a like. Thanks for watching.